Hi guys, welcome back to Dimitra's Dishes. So today I can't wait to share with you my version of Greek style pita bread, also known as naan. I mean, it's very similar. They're almost exactly the same way. It's not the Greek pocket pita bread that you make sandwiches with, although you can make a sandwich with this, but it doesn't create that hollow pocket inside. This is more of that really nice, rich, like flatbread. I'm teaching you how to make the white version. I also have a whole wheat bread version of this. I'll link it in the description cards up on top. Let's go over the ingredients, then we're going to get started. So before we get started, actually, I made the sumac chicken rolls a few days ago, and I posted it, and everybody wanted to know because at the end of making the rolls, I showed you how to serve it on top of flatbread, pita bread, or naan, and everybody wanted to know how to make it. So now I'm bringing this recipe to you. Very easy. The ingredients, guys, they're so simple. It's really just about 4 cups of bread flour, a little bit of salt. I have yeast and a little bit of sugar and water in here proofing, and this is what you want to see. Once you put the yeast in, after about 5-6 minutes, it should begin to get like foamy and puffy and almost look like a cloud is forming on top. That is how you know that your yeast is good and it's activated and it's going to work. If for some reason you don't see that, it doesn't get foamy or anything like that, throw it out and start all over. Otherwise your bread will get messed up, it won't rise, and it won't have the same texture or flavor. So you want to make sure you do this step first. You leave it here to proof for about 5 to 7 minutes. The only last ingredient that's needed is some yogurt. I like to use plain whole milk yogurt and a little bit of olive oil. This is my homemade recipe. I did this recipe a long time ago. Not sure how the quality was, but I will link it up in the description cards. Homemade yogurt is really easy to make, but if you don't have homemade yogurt, feel free to use store-bought. That'll work just as well. Just make sure that it's whole milk is the one that I like the best. And then olive oil. That's all you need. Our yeast is activated. At this point, what we're going to do, you always want to mix the salt and the flour because salt and yeast are not friends. So you don't want to go through all this work and then have the salt hit the yeast first and risk it from like risk the yeast like dying or something like that, because that can happen. So we're going to put some of the flour in here. Actually, I'm going to put all of the flour. And all of the ingredients are always on the website, dimitrasdishes.com. It's in the description box down below, so don't worry about quantities and measurements. Now, I'm also going to put about a cup of yogurt in here. Everything goes in the mixer all together. Then we're basically just going to turn it on and let it go for about 7 minutes until the dough is nice and smooth. Got the yogurt in there. And a few tablespoons of olive oil. We're going to turn this on and mix it on low, on speed 1 or 2, and then in a few minutes it'll be ready. Alright, so after 7 or 8 minutes, the mixture will become really nice and smooth. Now, depending on your flour, sometimes it'll be a little bit sticky, or it might appear to be a little bit on the drier side. It'll be fine either way. So we're just going to take it out. This is like I've made this dough so many times, and sometimes it comes out sticky like this. It comes together afterwards once it sets and once it rises. So I'm just going to transfer it into another bowl. I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil in the bowl so that way the dough rises easily in it, and just distribute it all around. And as you see, once you handle the dough, it starts to set and become less sticky and kind of come all together. That's how it's supposed to be. Even if it's still a little bit sticky, don't worry about it. And sometimes it might just be it might seem a little bit firm and not sticky at all. That's fine too. I like my dough a little bit on the stickier side. I feel like it makes a much more moist bread. So now I'm just going to cover this with a kitchen towel, or you can use plastic wrap. I'm going to set it aside for about 45 minutes to an hour. Sometimes it takes 2 hours. It just depends on the temperature in your house. Basically what you want is for it to rise and double up in size. I'm going to set it aside and I'll show you what it looks like when it's ready. So once the dough is ready, it took about an hour for my dough to rise. It's going to be nice and bubbly and just beautiful. Now we're going to punch it down, take it out of the bowl, and I'm just going to cut it in half. just like that. And then I'm gonna cut each section into five equal portions. You could do, okay, this can make either 10 or 12 pita breads. It just depends, or 10 or 12 naans. It just depends on how big or small you want them. If you want them on the smaller side, you can get 6 pieces out of each roll. If you want them a little bit like medium size, I'm gonna do 5 and I'll show you what that looks like. So we're gonna do 1, so I'm going to cut all of these into 5 equal pieces. I'm just going to form these into rounds, and I'll do the same thing with the other portion of the bread, just like this. And then I'm going to set it aside, and I'm going to cover it with my towel for about 10 minutes just so the dough can rest. The thing about yeasted bread dough, each time you work it, it kind of makes it hard, it kind of like firms up and kind of stays together and makes it hard to stretch out or roll out. So anytime you're working it, you want to leave it alone for about 10 minutes so that way you can rest and it can loosen up again. It'll be very easy for you to roll the dough out again. So now, once you're ready to roll out the bread, you want to make sure you have a cast iron pan. I love using cast iron because it warms evenly and it retains heat. It's just a great pan to have. I've had mine for like, I don't know, 15, 20 years already. It works perfect. I'll put the link down below where you can get one if you don't already have one. But that's another really good thing about this recipe. The bread gets made on the cast iron. You don't have to heat up your whole house by turning on the oven. But the pan needs to be really nice and hot. Another thing, no flour to roll out the bread, the dough, which is going to be bread. You want to oil your work surface with some olive oil. And that's going to help your work surface along with the rolling pin that you're going to use. That's going to help it roll out without adding flour to it, which when you add too much flour to it, what happens is it dries out the bread, and ain't nobody like no dry bread. So, so we're just going to roll this out. First, we're going to kind of stretch it out with our hands like we do a pizza. Just like that, to kind of help it. We'll do both sides. And then with the rolling pin, just roll it out. And the best thing about this pita bread, you can make it into a circle, but if it doesn't come out quite perfectly circular, then that's fine too. Because sometimes when you get pita bread, and naan actually, more naan than pita bread, it's not always round. Sometimes it has this like triangular shape, and you can go ahead and replicate that at home if you want to. I'm just going to try and keep it as round as possible. Keep rolling. Beautiful. And then I'm going to put it onto my hot pan, and I'm just going to cook it a minute on each side, maybe a minute and 30 seconds, just depends. And while that's happening, I'm going to continue doing the same thing, which is going to keep rolling these out one by one. Now if you want to, you can just roll these out all at once and just keep parchment paper in between and then cook them all at once. But really, the time it takes for one to cook, it takes the same amount of time for you to roll it out, so why not? So after about a minute, you're going to flip it over and you're going to see it's going to get these beautiful golden dark brown spots on it. That's characteristic of naan and pita bread. Once it's ready, then I'll show you what both sides look like, but basically I'm just going to cook it for the same amount of time. Keep rolling out the rest of this dough, and then I have a plate over here on the side that's lined with a kitchen towel. I'm just going to keep adding all my pita bread in here and keep it covered so that way it stays really nice and warm. Alright, so I'm on my last and final bread, and this one is just so perfect and beautiful. So if you let it heat up properly, a lot of times you'll get these nice beautiful bubbles that form, and that just gives it more of the characteristic of pita bread and naan. Now, this is done. You don't want to overcook it either. I think max 2 minutes on each side is all you need. I'm going to turn this off. Now, a few tips. When you're rolling out and you feel like the dough is kind of coming back on you and shrinking up a bit, that's another sign that it needs to rest a little bit, but olive oil always helps. You want to generously oil your board where you're rolling this out, and that really helps roll them out easily, and then it helps them cook beautifully on the frying pan as well. Now, I have all of these pita breads here, just bakes up just like that, so delicious and easy and quick. One final tip that I'd like to let you know, so if you wanted to make the dough a day ahead of time and maybe not make them fresh right when the dough is ready, make the dough as we did using the tabletop mixer, or you could do it by hand. You could totally do this by hand. And then once it rises and doubles up in volume, you're just going to punch it down, put it in an airtight container with room in it, because it's even going to rise in the fridge, and then store it in your refrigerator overnight. You can leave it in there for up to 2 or 3 days. It's going to develop more flavor and get more of like a sourdough taste to it, because the dough is going to ferment longer and it's just going to be lighter and create even more air bubbles. So you can definitely do that. You can make the dough up to 3 days before you're ready to use it, and just keep it in your fridge. Now, once you take it out of your fridge, you're just going to want to leave it at room temperature. Leave it out until it rises again. It's going to take about an hour or 2 for it to come to room temperature. If you try to work with cold dough, it's going to be impossible to roll it out. So you just want to make sure that it comes to room temperature and it rises and all that good stuff. Then you can roll it out and make this. These pita breads freeze well too. You can put them in an airtight plastic resealable bag and just store it in your freezer and take them out whenever you need them. Reheat them in like your toaster oven or in your oven or on top of your stove top, just like we did over here. Let me show you what they look like on the inside. These are delicious to use even as sandwich bread. They're yummy to dip in like hummus, and you're going to want to look out for that hummus recipe. It's going to be up either before or after this video, but come close, let me show you. It's still really hot, but just how soft this bread is, just how beautiful and like perfect it is. Look at that. I don't know if you could see it, but it's just exactly how good pita bread should be and good naan should be. I'm going to go and get myself some yummy feta cheese and olive oil to dip this in. You get the recipe and prepare all your ingredients to make this. It's delicious. Make this for your family and serve these up with some fried eggs in the morning. Totally delicious. The recipe is always in the description box, as well as the link that takes you directly to my website, www.dimitrasdishes.com. If you make it, make sure to share pictures with me on social media. I'm on Facebook and on Instagram, and let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Bye, see you guys next time.